with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Woo! Here we go again. I take a few days off, had to get some things straight. Around here in T-Town, Titletown, that being Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I know it pisses a lot of people off when I say that, so yeah, I say it on purpose. But today we're going to talk about Alabama and Tennessee, Oklahoma's mistakes, according to a lot of the Oklahoma fans that have been hitting me up in DMs and private messages. These are the concerns that I've gotten from Oklahoma fans that they want me to address. So don't kill the messenger. Once again, let me preface this by saying, don't kill the messenger. Because I'm just telling y'all, repeating y'all what other Oklahoma fans and podcasters and people in the media have been saying to me. And I just want to get y'all's thoughts on that. I might bring in a guest or two later on to maybe expound on that from the Oklahoma point of view, maybe Killer Breeze or possibly Johnny Johns as well. Also, we're going to talk about Oregon's genius move where they intentionally got a penalty for 12 men on the field. Now the NCAA is talking about making a rule in the middle of the season. As a matter of fact, I think as we speak, the NCAA has already made a rule to keep teams in the future from doing what Oregon done to in the loophole they found to intentionally cost Ohio State about 4 or 5 seconds on the clock. That was a genius move. It's not against the rules. Already Dan Lanning's become the new Nick Saban. He's getting teams to make rules because of stuff that he's doing in his coaching. Also, we're going to talk about college football predictions, all the games this week, all the big games this week. We're going to touch on that. I'm going to get you guys and gals take on that as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give the Four Horsemen shout-outs right now. Usually I don't do it on this live stream, but I'm going to start doing it. The Four Horsemen shout-outs go to No Cajones Kelly, Trucking with Cliff, Dakota Green, and Billy Burks are your Four Horsemen shout-outs of the day. Also, I got a comment of the day that I'm going to bring up for y'all right now. The comment of the day goes to Eric Taco Marino. Let me bring it up. There it is. All righty. Comment of the day goes to Eric Taco Marino. He says, I guess they are very happy with their fourth win over Oklahoma in 20 years. That's in reference to the video that I made about Texas, basically showing that they are still traumatized and emasculated by the one in that picture right there, that being one Baker Mayfield, who they took his jersey, cut a hole in it, and rammed a flag through it in the middle of the field. I thought it was random at first, but come to find out Baker had been talking shit to him for over a year since Oklahoma had beaten them. So that's why they targeted Baker. But it was funny because they had to cut a hole in the jersey first. They couldn't ram the pole through it. I guess they was too weak. I don't know. And then when they took it out there on the field, they couldn't get the damn flag to stand up. I never have understood why these players with all these big ass muscles can't get that flagpole on the ground. Now, I know that ground's hard as hell, granted. But what you do, why don't you like make it like a, sort of sharpen it at the end and make it sort of like a spear at the end, so you can actually stick the pole in the ground and your team's flag's not falling to the ground, which is symbolic to me that Texas's success will be fleeting eventually. I think this little nice little run that Steve Sarkisian's having with Texas is going to be short-lived very soon. It might be this week. Those are Georgia hedge pissers. Those Georgia hedge pissers will more than likely, I think, if they can get off to a fast start, Georgia may be able to beat Texas this week. They're coming off of a rivalry win over Oklahoma. They really didn't do Texas much of a favor on this one. And most of the schedule for Texas is pretty much a solid for them. But having Oklahoma and Texas back-to-back may be the only thing about this schedule that may hurt Texas. I think that Texas is in prime position to be upset, if you can call it an upset, by Georgia. So Alabama and Tennessee play this week. I'm going to go ahead and touch on that real quick. both these teams are struggling. Alabama's not looked very good at all against Vanderbilt or South Carolina. Ever since the first half of the Georgia game, they've basically disappeared. But I think Alabama has been installed as a 2-point favorite going into this game. And that may have slid down some since then. And as a matter of fact, I was hearing from my boy Jonathan Lewis that maybe it, in fact, had slid to a 1-point favorite for Alabama, which surprised me. I thought Tennessee would be the favorite since it's in Knoxville. But Tennessee lost to Arkansas, and then they struggled with a very middling of the road, mediocre Florida team. They probably should have lost that game. They probably should have lost the Oklahoma game, to be honest with you. Had they, brought in Michael Hawkins sooner, we'll never know. He's a true freshman, so it may not have made a difference that day. But I already got a few people up in here already. Baby DJ's in the house. Says getting thick in this college football season, right? Yeah, it's getting pretty thick. We're already got some surprising Heisman hopefuls and huge upsets each and every week. It's been a helter-skelter year, just a non-predictable year, in my opinion. First, you had Notre Dame beating Texas A&M at Texas A&M, which is no easy task, and then they turn around and just basically crap the bed in front of touchdown Jesus and everybody. And lose to Northern Illinois, and then turn around and beat the crap out of Purdue at Purdue and beat Louisville. And they've beaten all the good teams. If you had been Nostradamus before the season, you said, all right, Notre Dame's going to be 5-1 after 6 games. Would you have thought the only loss would be Northern Illinois? And then you got Alabama, who's also 5-1. Once again, and if Nostradamus come to you and said Alabama's going to be 5-1, you'd think they'd lost to Georgia, not Vanderbilt, right? But the upsets have been coming all year. Those are just 2 prime examples of what I'm talking about. And we already got a donation in the house. Appalachia Africa Twin with a big $10 donation. He says the Vows by 6. Going to be an ugly dog fight. Smash the like button, peeps. Yes, please do that. Like Appalachia Africa Twin just said. Jump out of the chat. Smash the like button. Share it to your friends. Let's get this party crunk. Let's get it bigger and better. We're almost to 5,000 subscribers. Get them to subscribe to the channel, and it'll really help the algorithm and push me more. 5,000 is a big milestone. But yeah, speaking of Appalachia Africa Twin, it's off the subject a little bit. I've been talking to your boy Kuz this week, and me and him have, I've had some disagreements about the whole Neal Brown situation, but that little press conference that Neal Brown held where he was talking basically about, everybody had a good time, didn't they? You come out and watched us lost, but everybody had a good time up until the final bell, until the final score was and not in our favor. Everybody was having a good time. That coach that's reaching, to me, that is a coach that is definitely reaching, because not many head coaches are going to go in the press conference like Neal Brown did and said, well, everybody had a good time, so what have we lost? That's just not a good look. And I really do believe that, when they lost to Texas Tech a few years ago, 48-10, I was calling for Neal Brown then. I was calling for his head then. But if West Virginia does end up getting rid of Neal Brown, Appalachia Africa Twin, my question to you is, where do you go? I told Kuz that I think y'all should go after Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher, I know he didn't look good at Texas A&M, but that just wasn't a cultural fit for him. That's just that. I just don't think him and Texas A&M ever gelled. Him and their boosters, him and their people. It's a cult-like atmosphere down there to begin with. Them and their all-male ass-grabbing cheerleader squad, the Yale crew. It just wasn't a good fit for Jimbo. He won a national championship at Florida State, following a legend, which is hard to do. Most time when you follow a legend, you don't win national championships. I think Jimbo would be reinvigorated to the point, especially being his home state of West Virginia. I think Jimbo Fisher would be a very good hire for West Virginia. I think he's been out of the game for a couple of years now after this year. I think that maybe y'all need to look into hiring Jimbo Fisher. Stephen Pritchett's in the house. By the way, if you want to get your comment pushed to the top like Appalachia Africa Twin, then there's a little money dollar sign at the bottom. You can click on that, write your comment out first, then hit send so you get your money's worth. OU screwed up by letting Gabriel go to make way for Arnold. The Ducks got a steal. I didn't think the offense would suffer much, but boy, was I wrong. Offense is non-existent normal these days. Now, I'm getting to that, Steve. It's actually one of my points on here about the Oklahoma mistakes and the Oklahoma concerns. And like I said, once again, don't kill the messengers. Let me preface this by saying this is stuff that the Oklahoma people have been telling me that they want me to address on here with all you guys to find out, if there's more than just the fact that you've been decimated by injuries. Maybe if there's a long-term situation percolating here as to maybe, talking about eventually, and I hate to say it, but Brent Venables not being the head coach of Oklahoma is what they're alluding to. But I'm going to bring something up for y'all real quick. And Johnny Johns is in queue right now. I'm going to bring you in second, Johnny Johns. I'm going to go ahead and touch on this Oregon stuff. So I've not forgotten about you, brother. I'm just going to touch on this Oregon stuff real quick. Let me pull this up real quick. Let's see what we got here. I don't think I got that one right there. There we go. Let me get this out of there. All right. Y'all see that? There it is. All right. It says the NCAA is examining a rule loophole Oregon used versus Ohio State with an intentional penalty. It's actually pretty smart. But it goes on to say down here, the NCAA is examining the loophole exploited by the Oregon Ducks at the end of their victory over the Ohio State Buckeyes, where they intentionally took a penalty for having 12 men on the field. As the final seconds ticked away in Saturday's contest between the two freshly minted Big Ten rivals, the Ducks were called for a 12-man penalty, but this put Ohio State 5 yards closer to field goal range. But more importantly, time was taken off the clock and got Lanning and his team closer to that marquee victory. So they intentionally put a guy on the field at the last minute to get a penalty, but it was like after 4 or 5 seconds had run off the clock. It says at the time the foul was seen as a harmless one, but social media caught up pretty quick. Turns out Lanning intentionally sent 12 players onto the field, giving his secondary an extra player. After Lanning admitted to the penalty being intentional, the move hasn't set right with NCAA or many fans outside of Eugene. Well, you should have made a rule for it. It's like I said, man, Nick Saban, they had to make rules for Nick Saban, especially in recruiting. Nick Saban would find loopholes after loopholes, and they had to make like 3 or 4. They used to call them the Saban rules. Says the Oregon coaches exploited a loophole in the rule book, and it could result in the first in-season action from the NCAA, who usually passes new rules and stuff during the offseason. And from what I understand, they have already passed a rule preventing this from happening again. And what do I mean by them preventing it happening from it happening again? Well, simply what's going to happen from now on is if a team does that, if they sneak a player on the field and intentionally get a 12-man on the field thing after 4 or 5 seconds run off, the officials are going to go back and look at the clock and add the time back on, which is the way it should be because that's the way it's in the NFL, right? So what do y'all think about that? Y'all think that was a dirty pool by Oregon, or do you think it was ingenious? I think it was ingenious. It's there. It's a way. It's a chess move, in my opinion. Terry Sleuth's in the house. He has his badge. He's deputized. You'll see people in here with a badge like him and Eric Taco Marino and Killer Breeze. He's in the outlaw posse. Coach Venables is the best chance to restore Oklahoma to prominence. You can't hurry love. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Johnny Johns in here. He's a part of the best damn Van Halen cover band of all time. Next Halen is in the house.
What's going on, man?
You like that introduction, or you want me to stop doing that?
No, it's great. That's fine.
It makes sense.
Right. That's cool. Especially there's a lot of Oklahoma people, and maybe there's some Texas people. We play a lot in Oklahoma and Texas, so you never know. It might get more people out to the show. It's already gotten a couple people saying they're going to come to the Shawnee show, so it ain't doing anything but helping us for sure.
That's right.
But I heard you talking about the Oregon deal, man. At the time, at the time that happened, I was like, dude, if he did that on purpose, that was pure genius, dude. Like, if he for real did that on purpose, that was genius, dude.
They said he admitted to it in the press conference. That he did it on purpose.
Yeah. Well, I heard that today, and I'm like, I wonder, did he really, or did it happen and it worked out for him? And he's like, yeah, dude, I drew it up that way the whole time. You know what I mean?
Just to take credit for it to piss him off.
Right. Like, it makes me wonder. But if he for real did that on purpose and he's not lying about it and just saying, yeah, I knew. It's like, dude, it was clearly an advantage, and it's like, dude, if it's legal, I mean, I don't know how anybody can say it's dirty if it's legal. I mean,
it's legal, but they're making a rule about it in season, which they've never done. They're going to implement a rule to say that if that happens again, they're going to add the time back, which is what they should do. But it wasn't the case at the time. So Oregon didn't do anything illegal. People act like they were stealing signs, like Michigan or some shit.
Right.
They just did stuff that was within the rules, you know?
Yeah. I guess when you lose a game by 1 point, you got to figure out every which way possible that maybe you got screwed. And, you know, that's how I feel about it. But, yeah, Dan Lanning's a good coach, man. I wish we had a coach like him.
Yeah, he's starting to remind me more and more every day of Nick Saban, man. He does some fiery, crazy-ass shit, man. And they have to make rules to stop him like they did Saban in recruiting.
Yeah, exactly.
But I got a few questions that were posed to me now. Once again, I'm going to say this for the third time so people don't come over here and try to, unsubscribe or kill me. For the Oklahoma perspective, I wanted to ask you a few things that I've seen in the comment section. The first thing that I keep seeing is Cale Gundy was forced to resign, which I believe that's the case. I don't think he just resigned on his own. He wouldn't have just up and resigned like that right before the season if it wasn't because of that crap. He figured, hey, I'm going to resign. I'm going to get fired. Do you think forcing Cale Gundy out, making him resign like that was a mistake now?
Yeah, I do, and I think he did force him out for sure. I don't think it was a deal where he had a choice. I mean, they can say whatever, but
yeah, people get mad at him when I say he was forced out. They try to say, no, he resigned on his own. I'm like, no, man. That was right before the season. It was right after that incident happened. There's no way that wasn't forced.
Yeah, they came out and said he resigned. He was asked to resign. So, I mean, it's just, I mean, I think maybe people are like, he definitely was asked to resign. Like, but whenever they came out and like the news broke out here, like they did say he resigned because of this, and they told the story about what happened. But I don't think it was a deal where he's like, oh my God, I felt so bad about what I did, I'm gonna quit. Like, no, and even Brent Venables said that when he heard about it, he was like, dude, did you really say that, dude? We're going to have to let you go. Like, you may have to quit. Like, you may have to resign over this deal. Right. And maybe it was kind of like a thing where, hey, bud, if you just resign, it don't look as bad attached to your name that, hey, there was a racial situation where you said this and then you got fired. At least we can say, hey, there was a thing that happened and you resigned. Maybe it was just a mutual deal, but it definitely, I don't think he had the choice to stay. I really don't. I'm going to have to ask him next time I bump into him somewhere, though. I'm going to ask him. I'll make sure I wait till after maybe he's got a couple of beers or something, and then where he's comfortable, and then like, hey, bro, you didn't have a choice to stay, right? They fucking ran you out of there, right? Like, I'm going to have to just flat out ask him.
Was he a very important part or integral part of the staff? Was he a really important assistant to you?
I think he was. I think he was more valuable than some people realized at the time. And like we've had like Mike Leach he came there, and we talk about having injuries at wide receiver, and we talk about the offensive line. Mike Leach came in there with a makeshift offensive line, guys that were a bunch of 2- and 3-star guys, and a bunch of wide receivers that were former quarterbacks and former safeties. And I mean, Brandon Daniels was a quarterback. Antoine Savage was a quarter. A bunch of guys who hadn't even played receiver, and we had a good offense, and right off the bat in 1999. And then Mark Mangino. So basically, what I'm getting at with Cale Gundy is he not only was good, but he coached under Mike Leach, Mark Mangino, Chuck Long, Kevin Wilson, Josh Heupel, Lincoln Riley. It would have been also with Jeff Lebby for a brief moment, but he had several Heisman Trophy quarterbacks, recruited several running backs that went to the NFL, DeMarco Murray, Adrian Peterson, and the Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, Quentin Griffin, so many guys that played in the NFL or got drafted. And he was a huge part of it, and he had coached under all these offensive coordinators that had won Heismans, had top 5 offenses. And so whenever he got to call plays and substitute, that he called as good of a game. I guarantee you, if he was the offensive coordinator, that offense would look a hell of a lot better than it does right now. And I see why a lot of OU fans are saying, why would we not just hire him as offensive coordinator? And I totally get it. He would be better than what we have. But how I feel about it is being an offensive coordinator at the University of Oklahoma is a job that I think a lot of people would want. And I think that we would be able to go get an offensive coordinator. Like if there's 120 or 130 schools, there may be 5 or 10 schools that we cannot steal their offensive coordinator. But other than about 5 or 10 different schools, there's a bunch of schools that we could have went out and snagged any offensive coordinator. We would have had a big choice, a big group of guys. It would have been a long list of guys that we could have got. And out of all people, we go with Seth Littrell. And I know he's had some good seasons as an offensive coordinator, but he'll have like one good one here and then a couple mediocre seasons. And then, he had that one good season and that one good season over here. He hasn't consistently had like a good offense consistently for years and years and years.
That was one of the points that I wrote down here after the Cale Gundy thing. The third point was Seth Littrell was a lazy hire. A lot of them saying it was a lazy hire, that he just went with Seth Littrell because he felt comfortable with him. He didn't do a lot of research on hiring anybody. It was just a quick hire and a lazy hire is what a lot of people were saying about the Seth Littrell hire. And also a lot of people were thinking that Jeff Lebby probably wouldn't have left for such a hard first head coaching job at Mississippi State if he hadn't been getting some blowback last year when this offense was in the top 5. So
right. Yeah, they thought that, man, people complained about the offense last year. Oh, God. We would love to have that offense this year. Like, God. And the only reason why people complained was against Oklahoma State, there was I want to say it was 6 drives. The defense got a stop, and the offense did nothing, 6 possessions in a row. But, man, that's way better than 6 games in a row. The offense is getting shut down and looks anemic. And this whole year, I don't even know how they're going to fix this, dude. This is, God. I don't want to make my own fans mad, like my own Oklahoma people, fans that I share a team with. I know when I came on here last week, I'm sure some people probably hate me because I flat out said, I'm trying to figure out a way we can win this game. I'm really trying to figure out, what would we need to happen to be able to beat Texas? And I felt like we're going to need Michael Hawkins to play the game of his life. We're going to need Burks to be able to come back. We're going to need to get, a special teams touchdown, have one of those games where we can get 3 or 4 turnovers, maybe a defensive touchdown also. And looking back on it, I'm thinking, God, even if we would have had all that happen, we would have still lost the game probably by 10 points or, 14 points. It's bad. It's definitely the worst offense I've seen us have since John Blake days. If you look at where we rank, it's horrible, dude.
Do you think that maybe they should give Jackson Arnold another shot? Because sometimes you'll see it, a player will get benched like Jalen Milroe did, and then you put them back on the field and they got a fire under their ass and they start doing what they're supposed to do and playing up to their potential. You think that
Right.
maybe Jackson Arnold needs to be given another opportunity to start?
Yes, I kind of do, just because it's like, dude, he had the 3 turnovers. It was looking like we were definitely going to lose against Tennessee. I felt like he deserved to get benched and let Michael Hawkins have a shot. Well, we've let him have a shot half of a game against Tennessee, half a game against Tennessee, a whole game against Auburn, and then now a whole game against Texas. I think what they're going to do is go out there and let him play the first half against South Carolina, and let's see what happens. If that offense is still anemic again, then you got to, what do they call it? Insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. You got to change something. And
Right.
I mean, and it's not just Jackson Arnold. I mean, there's going to be a lot of pieces getting moved around. This guy in, this guy out. They may try a couple, like they've tried those couple young receivers. I seen Kobe McKenzie out there for a couple plays, but not many. And so I feel like. And Brent Venables did say Jackson Arnold has looked good in practice. And like you say, the Jalen Milroe, he got benched for a game, and it kind of settled him down, and he went back out there and looked a lot better. And then Spencer Rattler, I remember he got benched for a little bit, not in 2021, but the year before that year in 2020. He had lost 2 games in a row against, I want to say Iowa State and Kansas State. I could be wrong, but he had lost 2 in a row and was about to lose 3 games in a row. He got benched, and lucky for him, the other guy didn't much better. So they put him back out there, and he ended up winning that game, and he actually ended up winning every game the rest of the year. He didn't lose another game the rest of the year after that. Now, that's not going to happen. That's definitely not going to happen this year, with a guy going in there and, winning every game. At this point, I would just like to see somebody go out there, like just something, man. Like, can that running game get going also? Like, dude, we have no running game at all, on top of the wide receivers all being hurt. It's just a mess, man. And I would love to make excuses for Seth Luttrell. I really would, man. I like Seth Luttrell. Like, he's a former player. He was on the national championship team. And I badly, badly wanted to see him do good. And I think Brent Venables badly wanted to see him do good. But as much as I want to make excuses for him with the injuries and all that, I think about what Mike Leach did in '99 and came here and literally had Brandon Daniels, a quarterback, playing receiver, and Antoine Savage playing receiver, and Quentin Griffin, a guy who was 5'0", who they had to break his red shirt. He was a true freshman that year in '99. Playing running back, and Josh Heupel, a JUCO 1-star quarterback, slinging, and they were figured out a way to move the ball and get points. So a good offensive coordinator can figure out a way to move the football and get points, and somehow it's not happening.
That's what Lane Kiffin used to do. He took Blake. His damn last name escapes me, but Blake, guy used to be quarterback at Alabama.
Blake Sims?
Yeah, that's it. Blake. I think it's Blake Sims. He was a running back before he come to Alabama. He ended up being a quarterback, and Lane Kiffin tailored the offense around that guy's abilities. Not the offense that Lane preferred, but he tailored it around his attributes. And another thing that's been pointed out to me by numerous Oklahoma people, once again, this ain't coming from me trying to troll anybody, but I've been hearing that Jackson Arnold and his daddy supposedly laid out an ultimatum to Brent Venables and them that if Jackson Arnold wasn't the starter next year, that they were going to leave. If Dylan Gabriel stayed, that they were going to go in the transfer portal. And so if that is the case, and we'll never know whether it was or not, so nobody's going to admit to that, but do you think it was a mistake? Do you think Dylan Gabriel would struggle as badly as these two guys? And I know y'all have been decimated by injuries, but it seems to me like people say, well, Dylan Gabriel will struggle too because of the way the offensive line is and the running game being non-existent. But I think that Dylan Gabriel being a more seasoned quarterback, he would probably be able to handle a little bit better. And I think that y'all would have been much more competitive against Texas, and I think y'all would have beat Tennessee with Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like the people that are commenting on here saying, well, even Dillon Gabriel wouldn't be able to play well with this offensive line. I hear you. But I agree with what you're saying, dude. There's no way that we could equate a true freshman to a 6-year senior. And there's no way that we could sit back and say, oh, yeah, that true freshman quarterback is going to be able to handle the pressure as good as a 6-year guy like Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel would be able to see things that this true freshman, and even Jackson's a true sophomore, Dillon Gabriel would be able to see things. It's a lot. It slows down for you each year, year after year. It slows down a little bit more and a little bit more. And things that are moving really, really, really fast for true freshman Michael Hawkins and even true sophomore Jackson Arnold, Dillon Gabriel, it might be something as simple as calling an audible, hey, I know they're coming from over this way. I know whatever the case may be, I'm going to throw a quick little screen, or I'm going to throw a quick little pass in the flat to a tight end, or whatever the case, because there was a play where Jackson Arnold, man, our running back is wide open. I don't think he would have scored, but he would have got a big gain, dude. It's an easy pass if he just looks to his left. That's something that Dillon Gabriel may have known was open pre-snap. He may have, in the pre-snap, known, oh, hey, this is going to be wide-ass open. So, yeah, I think it definitely would have made a difference. Like, sure, Dillon Gabriel wouldn't have had the season he had last year with this offense, but I think we would have at least been competitive. And, yeah, maybe we could have beat Tennessee, but then we still would have lost to Texas. You know what I mean? And if you're 5-1, you know, you're not complaining near as much. So if you're 5-1 and then you lose by maybe 2 touchdowns to Texas, it's not as big of a deal as it is now. Going down there and getting smoked twice. This is now twice within 3 years that we've gotten smoked by Texas in the Cotton Bowl. So this is a 2-time thing. We get, you know, and then you start thinking about everything starts piling up. The bad decision to get rid of Kel Gundy, the bad decision to get rid of Dillon Gabriel, the bad decision to bring in Seth Luttrell when you could have, you know, you had some options. And you start wondering, and then the bad decision on, like, yeah, we've got some injuries, but this is also why we recruit. And you don't have anything behind these guys, and we're not even 1 deep on the offensive line. We officially have the guys on the offensive line. They're the guys that, like, we wanted out there from the get-go. So it's not like we're playing a bunch of backups on the offensive line. I think that they clearly thought these guys were going to be a lot better than they are.
What's really got a sting for Oklahoma people, though, is what I've just brought up here. They've now moved up on FanDuel Sportsbook. They've moved Dillon Gabriel up to number 2 on the Heisman Trophy winner list, only behind the running back from Boise State. He's number 2 at a plus 260, as you can see right here.
Right.
And that's got to sting a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely, dude. But, yeah, it definitely makes Brent Venables look like a – And that's another thing. Dillon Gabriel, they asked him about what Brent Venables basically said. Well, DG wanted to be close to home. Dude, he lives in Hawaii, so there is no close to home.
Yeah, that's me and you discussed that before. That's horse shit, because Hawaii is separated from the mainland by thousands of miles, man. It takes just as long to fly from Oklahoma City to Honolulu as it does from Oregon to Honolulu. Right.
Killer Breeze says they need to go outside of the OU tree for the next OC. Yes, I agree. And I'll tell you what, dude, I felt like also if the Brent Venables experience doesn't work out, like he's a good defensive coordinator, but is he a good head coach? I feel like if it don't work out, and I hope they hire a good offensive coordinator. I think if he had a good offensive coordinator, he'd probably – I'll tell you what I think about Brent Venables, my real honest opinion. And, you know, I'm a huge OU fan. I got OU tattooed on my arm. I love OU. When we lose, it's like my dog died. Well, and when we win –
Kilbriggs has got a point about the whole BV situation for you right there.
Yeah, he says hanging on the situation.
My faith in BV is all hinging on how he handles this situation. I've been a massive BV supporter. I love what he's doing on the defensive side, but the buck ultimately stops with him.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with with Killer Breeze on that, man. Yeah, I think that it's going to be huge and I do think if he got the right offensive coordinator in, I'm not giving up hope on. He's been great at recruiting. Like he's done a good job recruiting. He's gotten some talent in. The talent on the defensive side of the ball is definitely a lot better than it was, but the talent on the offensive line is definitely downgraded significantly. Like Kel Gundy, speaking to him, the first thing he said when he went out and watched them play, like in fall practices before the season, he said, man, the first thing that jumps out to me is they don't have the NFL dudes on the offensive line. And he said, I don't see the Tyler Guytons and the Creed Humphreys, there isn't a Wanye Morris. I don't see, there isn't any, and he's the kind of guy that knows what he's looking at. He knows what to look for, and he knows what he's looking at. And he said right away, I don't think there's one NFL guy on that offensive line. And every year we usually have at least a couple, every year. And it's definitely not that way right now. But my true opinion about Brent Venables, man, is I don't think he is an elite head coach. I don't know, he's definitely not an elite head coach. I don't think he's ever going to be a Kirby Smart or a Nick Saban. But I could see him maybe being a guy like Jimbo Fisher, Coach O, Les Miles, the kind of guy that when he does have the right pieces around him, he'll give the best rah-rah speech in the world, and he knows how to motivate a team. And like Coach O, what was the difference between him having, and I know Joe Burrow's the easy answer, but it just proves my point even further. When he's got the right pieces around him, when everything's just right, he won't botch. He'll have a good season. And Les Miles, what was the difference between Les Miles winning a natty at LSU and Les Miles when he was at Kansas or OSU? He had the right pieces around him. Or what was the difference between Les Miles winning the natty and then, doing bad enough to get fired or let go or whatever? Or Jimbo Fisher winning a natty and then not being good enough to keep the job at A&M.
Yeah, I think it was I just don't think it was a good fit at A&M. He didn't get along with us from day one, man. And like I was telling the West Virginia guy earlier, I think he'd be reinvigorated if he went somewhere else, like his home state of West Virginia. I think Jimbo Fisher would be a good hire for somebody now that he's had a few years to set out and maybe refuel the jets a little bit, so to speak. But before we move on to my Alabama-Tennessee game that I wanted to get your thoughts on too, because you're an outsider looking in. In the end, honest opinion, do you think Brent Venables will be the head coach at Oklahoma in 3 or 4 years?
Man, I mean, for real, straight up, dude, I kind of don't, man. I'm gonna be happy we won 6 games this year. If they don't get something fixed, it could be the same thing next year. And if he wins 6 or 7 games this year and then follows that up with another 6 or 7 wins next year, he will be gone. No doubt about it.
Bagman says he feels like Brent is sort of like Will Muschamp or Butch Jones combined.
Yeah, I mean, those are pretty good comparisons too.
Will Muschamp was a hot name. I mean, everybody thought he's got that fire, man. He's gonna fire them up and they're gonna win. And it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, and when I compare him to the guys like Les Miles and Coach O, I'm only making that comparison saying, like, the only way I see Brent Venables working out, I don't think he's going to be a guy like Bob Stoops who can consistently win 10 and 11 games every single year. Like Bob Stoops, a bad year was winning 8 or 9 games. That was a bad off season, a rebuilding season. I think Brent Venables, the best case scenario is he's going to be that guy that when you get the perfect team, the perfect offensive coordinator to go with him, he'll have a good season and he'll have 2 more crappy seasons like what we've seen this year and then also in 2022. Like he's proven that he's just, for whatever reason, I mean, when it comes down to it, dude, you can either do it or you can't. And this is 3 years now in a row where this team had, like, even last year, dude, yeah, we won 10 games, but we lost to a Kansas team that we had, like, if you were a legit good coach at Oklahoma, There's no way you get beat by OSU and Kansas back-to-back. And then he was in a dogfight with UCF. He was in a dogfight. We could have easily lost 4 or 5 games last year. Right. And he got really lucky. And that's another thing. Thank God he won that Texas game last year, because if you're 0-3 against Texas your first 3 years, they'd be calling for his head right now. And a lot of people already are down here calling for his head. I mean,
he came really close to losing to Texas last year too. So I mean,
thank God he pulled that off.
Last second win for him. That's just like Moore. It's a good thing that we didn't blow that 28-point lead to Georgia completely, and we won that game.
Right.
If we had not, if you blowed a 28-point lead, turn around and lose to Vanderbilt, and possibly lose to South Carolina, we probably should have lost to South Carolina too, to be honest with you.
Right.
South Carolina, to me, seemed like the better team. We just were able to find a way to win. But that brings me now. Bagman says props to Bama for getting someone outside the Saban tree. Alabama had done that with Nick Saban. We done it long before Saban. We went outside the Bama tree and got Nick Saban, and things start changing a little bit. But this Tennessee game coming up, man, it's real hard to call. It's like a 2-point line. Alabama's actually favored, which surprised me, on the road in Knoxville. But Tennessee has been struggling just as bad as Alabama. So, I mean, what do you take from this game? What do you see from this as an outsider looking in?
I know it's tough. I really feel it because Tennessee has, like, after they had the win against Oklahoma, and the first 3 weeks they looked like one of the best teams in the country, but they and then didn't they barely beat Florida last weekend? Tennessee did.
And normally, beating Florida meant something, but nowadays it doesn't.
Right.
Because it's a mediocre program.
Right. Yeah, they. I don't know here's what I think though with that one. It's so hard to tell because I've seen Tennessee look really, really good, and then I've seen them look like a mediocre or maybe above average football team against Arkansas and against Florida. But but with Alabama, they had the big first half against Georgia. They looked like the number 1 team in the country. And then second half, it slipped away a little bit. And then you had the Vanderbilt game where it looked like they just wasn't – it was almost like they just felt like, dude, we're going to win this game. I don't think they ever believed they were even had a chance to lose that game. But then they come out again and have this game last week where they barely sneak away with a win. And I know they were playing the team that's a little more scrappy than you think. And you are going to get everybody's best shot. When you're Alabama, you're going to get everybody's best shot. But I think that the difference in this game, it's at Tennessee, I think the difference is going to be Tennessee has a young quarterback that hasn't played in a ton of these big games. And Alabama has a guy that's experienced. And he's played in a playoff game. He's played in – Didn't he play? Yeah, he played in the conference championship game. He's won a conference championship game. So I think what I would give the edge to Alabama is strictly just because they've got a quarterback that's been in these big games, and maybe Nico makes a few more mistakes, than you. And I know your guys made some mistakes too. But I feel like, and this is also going to be a game that Alabama's fired up for. Like, this ain't going to be getting fired up for Vanderbilt,
Ever since Tennessee played Oklahoma, it's like they went into a shell offensively. That it seems like Josh has got gun shy with Nico, and he's got the reins on him a little too much, in my opinion. I think he needs to let loose a little bit. But when he did, he had a couple of turnovers in the first half against Oklahoma, and ever since then he's been scared. It seems like he's been playing scared and trying to win these games in the 20s. But if Alabama scores 31 to 38 points on Tennessee, I think Tennessee's in trouble. Tennessee's going to have to want to try to score, man. They got to let Nico loose. Now, I'm an Alabama fan saying that, but I hope they don't. I hope they're dumb enough to keep the reins on him.
Right.
But they're going to have to let loose eventually and just say, to hell with it.
Right. I think if they do let it rip, I think he'll have a few turnovers again against Alabama. That's what I think is going to happen. If they let it rip, Alabama's going to win this game. I really – if I had to bet like $100 on it or something, I would take Alabama. And Alabama's actually the one giving up the 2 points, so they are slightly favored in it.
That's right. Alabama's favored by 2. I think it slipped down to maybe 1 at this point, but I'm not sure.
It's basically a you pick 'em. I mean, and I know Tennessee's at home, man, and Tennessee beat Alabama at Tennessee a couple years ago, didn't they?
Yeah.
They had a much better quarterback that year too. They had like an 8th-year senior. They had a dude that was like 40 years old playing quarterback.
We missed a long field goal in that game and got them good field position, and then they went down and kicked the field goal and made it and beat us.
Right.
So
yeah, it was a thriller.
It was barely a win for Tennessee, but we sort of owe them for that, and so I think that's going to be in the back of their minds too. What happened in Knoxville? So.
Right. I think, well, like you said, they barely won that game, and any team could have won it. It was a thriller. It was a lot like the Georgia-Alabama game that we seen, but it's like Tennessee had a much better quarterback that year than what they've got. I don't think Nico, and I know he's got all the talent and stuff, but I don't think he's what he's been hyped up to be. I don't think he's like some elite quarterback. Maybe he will be next year, but I don't think he's some elite quarterback. You know what wouldn't shock me at all? It wouldn't shock me one bit if Alabama went down there and just kicked their frickin' ass, honestly.
Yeah, but I was telling a friend of mine that. I was like, it wouldn't surprise me if this wasn't a close game either way. One of these teams gets on the ropes early or something, they may roll over because both teams – look shaky confidence-wise, so either one could blow either one or the other out. Let me get this $5 super chat here. Appalachia Africa Twin says at least BV hasn't failed to the Neil Brown level, that being West Virginia's coach. 6th year and 0 weeks in the top 25 for West Virginia. Yeah, y'all been real patient with Neil Brown. I give y'all that. If he had been at one of the Blue Bloods, he would have probably been fired by now, especially with the comments he made in his last press conference. I don't know if you saw his press conference, but he's telling them, well, y'all had a good time, didn't you? Everybody come out to the game. Everybody was having a good time. Everybody was smiling until the end of the game when we lost. Well, no shit.
Yeah, you think?
This ain't a rated G movie, brother. I mean, I'm just saying, man, that's a great attitude to have, but this ain't Mary Poppins, man.
Right.
We're watching Lethal Weapon on Saturdays, man. We want some action.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, neither one of us are saying BV is just total garbage, dude. Like, I mean, he's got a lot of jewelry on his fingers, man. He's won a lot of championships as a defensive coordinator. I don't think the dude forgot how to coach. Just like I don't think Jimbo Fisher forgot how to coach. Like you were saying, if he took a job at West Virginia or somewhere else, he's had a couple of years to kind of take a breath and relax. He'll probably have success, and I don't think the man forgot how to coach football. Like, I think he's good, but he's definitely got some serious problems. I feel like we're just complete backwards of what we've been. Oklahoma's defense. This is getting back to the league like it was before under Brent Bennell. Assisting OC. Yeah, I mean hey, it might be that one little thing can fix the whole deal, but they have to get a new offensive coordinator, and they've also got to hit the portal for offensive linemen, because you're not going to be able. Like, I know we got a 5-star offensive lineman and then a highly recruited 4-star. Those guys aren't going to be ready day one. So like maybe one of them can play at right tackle or right guard or whatever. But they're going to have to go out and hit the portal. And I don't mean like go get a dude from North Texas or SMU. They're going to have to hit the portal and go out and spend some money like they did on the defensive side of the ball and go get some legit good offensive linemen.
It's funny otherwise, because in my notes here, I had decimated by injuries. What they need to do is just, when they go in the transfer portal this year, concentrate on the offensive line and some wide receivers maybe. What do you think?
Yep. That's exactly what they need to do.
Fred Bagley has his badge. He's deputized. Parity snuck up quicker than we thought. It's already to the point where even the dominant teams are going to have close calls. Parity is here. It's going to be a bigger factor down the road, and I believe that. If Georgia can stop getting off to slow starts, Texas may have some issues this week. You're coming off a big win, a rivalry win over Oklahoma, and you got Georgia coming to town. And Texas had a pretty good solid on their schedule. But this 2-week span right here really does Texas no favors. You have to follow Oklahoma with Georgia. So, I mean, it would not surprise me if Georgia went down there and beat Texas.
Yeah. And, I've seen Texas, like, they do have a hangover after Oklahoma, win or lose. Like I think it was Auntie Louise that was doing that. He was doing like a review of them.
Right. You got his name right.
I've heard everybody calling him that, but he had said something. He was doing like a prediction or whatever, wins losses on the season or something like that. But I remembered him saying that he goes, man, let's take a look. Texas, the week after they play their rival Oklahoma, whether they win it or lose it. And he went back, and it was like, close game against Kansas, close loss against Kansas, and then like almost got beat by Texas Tech. And it was like they either lost or almost got beat to bad football teams every time. And he went back like at least 5 years to see like what do they do right after the Oklahoma game. And he goes, dude, they got to play Georgia. And he, of course, gave them a loss. But I don't know, dude. I will say one thing. I will say, every year I hear Texas is back. Texas is back. They're either back or Oklahoma's really far down, like far down that we ain't never been. Because that Texas team that I seen Saturday was different from the Texas teams that I usually see. Like we usually have like for whatever reason we've been able to beat them. 5 of the last 6. Now it's 5 of the last 7 and 11 of the last 16. But this team here, we like when we intercepted that ball, we were up 3-0, could have went up 6-0. That was the time the Texas teams we used to play, they may have, started to have a little doubt creep in, and maybe we would have done something. But this Texas team went out there. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They kicked our ass. And I don't think that our defense did. I think our defense showed up to play. And I think Texas just wore them down, and they're just better. So I could see it going either way, honestly. If Georgia whoops them, I'll be happy to see them lose because I can't stand Texas fans. But I wouldn't be shocked if Texas also wanted to.
I know why Texas and Oklahoma play the game in the middle of the year. It's because of the state fair and all that stuff. But there comes a time in history where you got to move on and do things differently. In my opinion, I think that them playing it in the middle of the year sort of hurts both programs. I think it should be at the end of the year. I think it should be like Alabama and Auburn, because y'all two consider each other y'all's main rival, regardless of what Texas A&M thinks or Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State and Texas A&M need to have their own little charity case rivalry. And Oklahoma and Texas should be played at the end of the year, because if you lose that game in the middle of the year, it sort of taints your season already, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see it played towards the end of the year for sure. We used to play Bedlam at the end of the year, but
you can still play it in Dallas. You just don't have to play it around the state fair.
Right.
Which might actually be better. Might actually be better.
Right. Yeah, because we did play each other at Jerry World at the end of the year, but it was whenever we happened to meet up in the conference championship together. And it was kind of wild playing Texas at it. It was still in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but it was at Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World, and it was wild playing it when it's cold outside and the state fair ain't going on outside, and it's in a stadium a few miles away. But I remember hearing people saying, like, man, like I remember hearing on the radio, they're like, do you think, it was either on the radio or another podcast, they're like, do you think it'd ever get moved to Jerry World? Because the Cotton Bowl, dude, it was turning into a shithole for a while, dude. Like, they've done some upgrades on it recently, but I don't know if you've been to the Cotton Bowl in a while. It needs some updates. Like, it needs to be updated. That screen is everything about it, and I know it's classic, and that part of it I like the way it looks like they did upgrade a few things, but going to Jerry World and then going to the Cotton Bowl, I could see why people's like, God, it'd be nice if they played it in Jerry World and then do it at the end of the year where maybe there's more at stake, Well,
I mean, tradition is fine, but sometimes you have to try something new every once in a while just to see. Sigma says that Ryan Williams is going to have a field day on the Vols. Ryan Williams, he's that 17-year-old.
That wide receiver.
Yeah. Now, I've noticed some things about Ryan Williams. He caught that touchdown pass. I don't know how he stayed in bounds. I don't know if you saw that catch against Vanderbilt, or one of his Vanderbilt or South Carolina. I can't remember, he sort of backed into the end zone. Some of the stuff they're doing, man, celebrating after scores when you're still down. I'm not a real big fan of the way this team's presenting itself as far as that goes. And that's the one thing that concerns me is maybe that Kalen DeBoer he's being too much of a player's coach. And he's going to have to sort of buckle down a little bit, in my opinion, in that area. But what's his name here? The only right-wing Duck fans in the house. He said he's pulling for Georgia. Now, I want to ask him something real quick. Me and Johnny Johns were talking earlier about the Oregon 12th man on the field intentional penalty. Some people complain it was dirty pool, but other people think it was ingenious. Me and Johnny Johns thinks it was ingenious. It's being said that it was done intentional. Can you give us any scoop on that? Was it an intentional thing? Because I'm hearing it was intentional. He even said and alluded to it being intentional in the press conference. But I think it was a genius move by Dan Lanning to steal 4 or 5 seconds from Ohio State.
Yeah, God, what a good idea. Yeah, and I mean, I'm guessing he was, but and he did say it was. They replayed that, like where he was saying it on the Sports Animal. I think it was Monday morning when I was listening to it, and because when at the time that it happened, I was like, dang, that worked out good for them. But I never thought, well, what if they did it on purpose? What a good idea. And I'm shocked no one's done it before. Like, I'm surprised this is the first time we've seen. Basically, they would rather give up the yards to knock off some seconds off the clock. That was, I mean, it was a good trade. You give up 5 yards. We'll give them the 5 yards to knock some seconds off the clock. I'm shocked nobody's ever done it before.
Yeah, someone may have done it before, and they just didn't own up to it or say it because they didn't want nobody to catch on. And Dan Lanning just happened to out everybody, sort of like kayfabe being dead in wrestling. The click moment where they all got in the ring and started hugging and shit, and they're good guys and bad guys. I don't know if remember that in wrestling, but I thought it was a decent analogy.
I would have played dumb on the whole deal. I would have been like, no, man, I had no idea, but I'm glad it worked out for us. I would have played dumb on the whole deal.
That's what
I had no idea I was going to screw them out of a few seconds.
Ducati 1098 says the Texas A&M game at the end of the year at Kyle Field's going to be epic. Right now, A&M's undefeated in the conference, so
they're better.
Might be for a spot in the SEC title game.
Right. I mean, it could be. A&M's a lot better than I thought they were going to be, man. And see, that right there, like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like that coach, wasn't he the guy from Duke that went there? He's at A&M, man, and he's figuring out ways to win football games at a program where a previous coach that had won a national title was struggling to win enough games. This dude is already figuring out ways to win football games. Mark Stoops, I know he don't do it every single year. Like, he don't win 10 games every year, but he's at Kentucky figuring out ways to win football games. And good coaches, winners win. And I love Brent Venables, but if he don't start winning, he's gonna be gone. And this Texas A&M guy, he's winning. And I hope they whoop Texas's ass, dude. I'll be pulling for A&M on that game.
Brent Venables he's coming in a weird situation. Is a first-time coach. Like I said, he had half his roster rated. The whole NIL, but the whole transfer portal thing was sort of new to everybody. So he was behind the 8 ball on that. And then he didn't have as many years to get his feet wet in the Big 12 before he had to jump into the SEC. Sarkisian's had a chance to get his program established before going into the SEC. Brent Venables hasn't had that luxury. If you want to try to defend him, that's my defense for him. And a lot of fans said before the season that they'd be happy with 8-4, 9-3, and now they're acting like they're not going to be happy with that. Now, I knew this was going to be the case, man. They say they'll be happy with that shit, but then when it happens, they're not happy with it. Right.
I'll tell you what, if they somehow win 8 games, I'll be really happy with it. If they can somehow win 8 games. But, overall, dude, it's disappointing, but I'm still like enjoying the college football season. Like, I've been watching, like, I have other teams that I keep up with. Like, OU's my main team, but, like, I have other teams that I like. And sometimes it's a team that's just an underdog team that you don't see win very often that you just want to root for, and then sometimes it's just certain games like, you know, LSU. I'm rooting for them because they're playing against USC, or hey, I'm a Maryland fan because they're playing USC, or like, hey, I'm going to root for A&M because they're playing Texas today, and then like Army. Have you been watching Army?
Hey, dude, Army Navy. That's a good thing. Bring up. They've been beating the shit out of people. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. You got all these players now that are going back and forth on teams and not staying but 1 year, sometimes only half a year, and they have no loyalty to their teams, and they're not really out there invested in playing hard. These players on Army and Navy's team, the reason why they might be dangerous is these players are playing because they actually love the game. They're actually out there playing because it means something to them. These players, like even my Alabama players, all they care about is their NIL deal. The Army players and the Navy players don't give a shit. Well, they probably care, and they wish they could have one. But I'd say overall, they're more invested in doing good for the team that they're playing for.
Yep. Yeah, dude, Army. I've been watching some of their games, and I mean, dude, they're easy to root for. Like that's been one of my other teams I've been watching, and I would love to see. I mean, I think they play Notre Dame later on in the year, and I can't wait to watch it.
I know Navy does. I don't know about Army.
Right. Oh, they may both play Notre Dame. Actually, I haven't. I was looking at Army schedule and I thought they played them, but it may have been a game that they played. Like, I may have scrolled back to last year, maybe. But yeah, I think Army and Navy both play Notre Dame. But when Army plays them, if they do play them at the end of the year, I can't wait to watch that, man. I'm interested.
I saw a stat that said that Army and Navy are now ranked for the first time together as undefeateds for the first time since 1960.
Right.
That's back when Roger Staubach was playing for Navy, I think, or some shit.
Yeah.
If you know your history of college football. But that would really be a poking eye to all these selfish-ass players of the Army or the Navy got up in there in the playoffs and won the whole damn thing.
Oh, I would love to see them at least get in there and make some noise.
They would get that automatic G5 spot if one of them could stay undefeated. The thing that sucks is they're both in the same conference now. I think Army used to be independent, but now they're not. They're in the same conference as Navy, so if they play each other undefeated, and one of them's got to win, then they might end up playing each other again the next week for the whatever thing, Conference USA or AAC or what.
I'm not sure which one they're in because it makes me wonder. Both of them wouldn't be able to get in then, right?
That's what I'm saying. If they both played each other undefeated and one of them won, then they would have to play each other again the next week in the conference championship game. Would have won 1 week and won the other, and they both had a loss at that point. They would knock both of them out of that G5 spot.
Right. Dang. Yeah. I want to see at least one of them get in there for sure. Okay, so where does a team like Notre Dame, do they, if their only chance is to get in at one of those, I guess they'd have to get in at one of those at large? Like, since we haven't never done this 12-team playoff, I'm still trying to figure out how it's all going to work out. Like, I think there's going to be some chaos at the end of the year, even with 12 teams, but I'd rather see. I am happy it's 12 teams, though. I am glad, but
Notre Dame, I got their schedule out here.
Do they play Army?
Let me pull it up for you real quick. Can you see that?
Yeah, barely.
All right. Well, Notre Dame plays. They're off this week. They play Georgia Tech October 19th, and then they play at Navy or wherever they're playing it at. They play Navy on the 26th, and they play Florida State, Virginia, and they do play Army too. You're right. They play both. They play both of them this year, and they play Army the week before the USC game.
So they play Florida State and Notre Dame?
Florida State, Notre Dame plays.
Oh, no, Notre Dame. You're on Notre Dame's schedule. Okay, I see. Man, I can't. I'm on my phone, so I'm not able to even see that hardly at all. It's real little on my phone.
Notre Dame plays Notre Dame plays Army and Navy. I bet when they scheduled those two games, they didn't think both of them was going to be undefeated. They probably shit themselves right now. Like, damn it!
Why did we? Yeah,
we got to play Army before USC.
And they got to play both of them, and they're both in the top 25.
Yeah. Speaking of someone shitting the bed, what about Lincoln Riley, man? He can't win a road game. Now he can't even win at home.
Right. I had somebody ask me the other day, they're like, dude, why are you still, because I was rooting against Lincoln Riley, and they're like, why are you still rooting against him? I'm like, dude, he left our program and took the Heisman quarterback. We haven't been able to recover fully since. Do you really think that I want to watch him go out there and just come out like, you know, all of a sudden come out and have success and like, hell no, dude. I want to see him go out there and fall on his face, dude, after what he did.
It's the way he handled his exit, man. If he hadn't exited, like if he had just waited to the end of the year and just left, it'd been different. But there was an assistant on the staff. I can't remember the guy's name. I never can. You probably know. That was helping him recruit for USC before he was ever through coaching at Oklahoma.
Yes.
That's just a rumor. No, that shit's a fact because that assistant admitted to it. The guy that went with him. I can't remember his name, but the son of a bitch was recruiting for USC before the Oklahoma State game.
Right. Yeah, I think it was the cornerback, the DB coach, man. I'm having a brain fart on his name. He, was it Manning? What was that guy's? Roy Manning, maybe was his name?
I think it was Roy Manning.
Roy Manning?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Roy Manning. But he was, dude. And the fact, the whole deal. And it's like, it'd be like somebody screwing you over. And then maybe you're in a business with them or whatever, and they screw your whole business over on their way out the door. And then they go somewhere else. And then, like, you are not going to wish them to just have all this success and, like, it definitely feels good knowing that at least it blew up in his face. Like, he took off, he screwed us. If we're going to have to suck and rebuild and you know, Oklahoma is not going to be the typical OU. OU hasn't been the OU football that I've grown up watching since he's left. Like last year, we were decent. I think we benefited from a weak schedule last year. And I don't think that even last year we were all that great. Like, I think we were decent, but I don't think we were like a great football team. Even last year, like, I feel like for 3 years I haven't watched us be a great football team. And it does have a lot to do with the way he left us. So the last thing I want to see is for him to go to USC and win a national championship. And we already had to watch him win a Heisman with our former quarterback that we thought was the future of Oklahoma. And that was bad enough watching that first year. But these last couple years, and also everything that we've been saying the last 3 years has come to fruition. They called us haters, and oh my God, like they even called you a hater. Oh, you're just mad he left. You're like, dude, I'm not even an Oklahoma fan. I'm an Alabama fan. It didn't affect my Alabama team.
Everybody can see what went down. And when he makes little backhanded, smart-ass comments like, oh, I'm not taking Oklahoma players. I'm taking transfer portal players. Oh, they just happen to all be Oklahoma players, though. That you lured into the portal. You lured them in there, man. You tampered with you tampered, man. You tampered with that. You can't prove it, but you know he did that shit. So,
oh, yeah.
That's what I get mad about, is him trying to lie to somebody and insult my intelligence.
Right. Yeah, it's like saying I didn't get this cheeseburger and fries from McDonald's. I got it from Uber Eats.
Yeah.
It's got a McDonald's wrapper on it.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it does make me feel just a tiny bit better. What I really wish is we were like 5-1, or maybe I wish we wasn't struggling so bad on offense, so I could actually enjoy what's going on at USC. And even OSU, dude, they're terrible right now, dude, Oklahoma State. But it's hard for me to point and laugh at them because of what's going on with Oklahoma. But I have enjoyed it. It at least gives me some kind of a win watching Lincoln Riley struggle, because everything we've said, like has come true. Like we said, hey, we think this guy isn't. Kind of the same thing people are saying about Brent Venables. I don't think he's a good head coach. I think he was just a good coordinator. Well, we've been saying the same thing about Lincoln Riley. He's not an elite head coach. He was a good offensive coordinator that got gifted a program, and he got gifted a program that was already set up and ready to go. He hasn't proven he can go to a program and set his own thing up, and literally.
Yeah, well, the only way he built that first USC team into a double-digit winner is because he took half of Oklahoma's offensive roster with him.
Yeah, and half the coaching staff.
He just stole a bunch of shit from Oklahoma and took it to USC. So
right, and
after all that left, you see what you got.
Exactly, and some of it, like with Oklahoma, he took the most important piece. Like he took the X factor piece. Like I feel like if Caleb stays at Oklahoma, then we win 10 or 11 games, especially with the schedule we had that year. Because we lost 5 games by a field goal. Or 5 of them, 4 of them were by a field goal. 1 of them was by like a touchdown. If you have Caleb Williams, you probably win all those the games you lose by 3 points, and you probably still lose to Texas. You know what I mean? But in 2022, I think we would have been the ones winning 10 games or 11 instead of them if Caleb stays. So he took the X factor piece. He took half the coaching staff, but he also he got lucky and was able to snag the Travis Dye from Oregon. And then he was able to snag that wide receiver, Addison.
The reason why
from Pittsburgh.
The reason why he got those players was because he had Caleb Williams to offer them as a quarterback.
Right.
So he doesn't get them players without Caleb Williams. So,
and he hasn't been able to get them since. Like that first year, he was able to promise. You know, he said, we're going to reinvigorate USC football. We're going to be the mecca of college football. And he was able to get Jordan Addison and Travis Dye and Caleb Williams. And you know what? That was enough to win him 11 games. But you know, it's funny that we say he always does a little worse each year. It's continuing to happen.
My boy Jonathan Lewis made a podcast, and a lot of Oklahoma people wanted to kill him when he said it. But Lincoln Riley, if he had stayed at Oklahoma, you would have never known any difference. And y'all probably would have both been more successful had he not tucked tail and run and got mad and pissed off at your AD for joining the SEC. He can say that's not the reason he left, but I know it absolutely is one of the reasons why he left. He was mad that he wasn't supposedly included more in on the decision to join the SEC. And if he had stayed at Oklahoma and just tried to weather the storm a little bit, it might have worked out for him, and it might have worked out for Oklahoma. He fractured both of them. He fractured himself. He fractured himself, and he fractured Oklahoma.
I agree with that 100%. Like me and somebody else was just talking about this like yesterday, and I'm like, dude, I'm not so sure if I think he screwed us and him. Like I have to wonder. He had to start over completely over there, and like, sure, he got the boost from Caleb and some of the other guys he's able to bring in that first year. But I'm not so sure if he didn't screw himself by leaving. And maybe, who knows, maybe if he would have stayed here, because he'd already had something built here. And he did already have Caleb Williams, who was a Heisman winner. And you do have one hell of a recruiting pool in the Dallas-Fort Worth area right here in our backyard. Like we're closer to the Dallas-Fort Worth area by a couple miles than even Texas Longhorns. You can consistently get like a top 10, top 5 class almost every year, just hitting that area, and in the north, all the North Texas area. And then the 3, you'll get about 2 or 3 good players out of Oklahoma every year on average. Some years you may get 5 great Oklahoma players. Some years you may get 1 or 2. But he basically went out there where he thought he was going to out-recruit everybody in the state of California, and he was going to build a fence. Well, then he found out he had an organ problem, and they're coming in there taking his damn lunch money left and right.
Yeah, Oregon was that shit for a while too, man. It was back when Sarkisian was coach. Oregon was coming there taking shit.
Yep.
But Larry Trewicki has a question for us. He says, Corn is in here watching. He's a Nebraska fan. He says, you guys, do y'all think Arizona can pull off the win against Con Time? Deion Sanders in Colorado this week. No, Arizona's looked like they've been struggling this year a little bit. Con time, as much as I have to give him admit it, he looks a little bit better this year. His team looks a little bit better. I know they're 4-2, just like they were last year, but for some reason, this 4-2 looks better than last year's 4-2 to me. But I would absolutely love to see him lose to Arizona, but I don't think he will. I think Colorado can beat Arizona.
I know. Unfortunately, I do too. But hey, if Arizona pulls it off, I will definitely be enjoying it and laughing at it.
Well, I got a lot easier to say con time.
Yep. Yeah, he's been doing better, man. And I'll tell you, it also seems like it seems like whenever they just shut up and go to work and try to win football games, they do better. And then when they'll win one or two, they get cocky, they run their mouth. He needs to just shut up and be a regular coach, man. Like all of them do, man. But I feel like people will like him a lot more if they just shut up, go play the game. Like I don't really know. I don't even know how much longer he's going to be at Colorado. I feel like as soon as the son leaves and Travis Hunter, he's probably going to dip out.
Larry Trewicki said that Stinky Linky could replace Con Time at Colorado. Deion leaves.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's completely.
If Deion Sanders ends up winning 6 or 7 games this year, it would not surprise me if Florida State didn't consider him, since he's an alumnus, to replace Mike Norvell. If Mike Norvell continues this pace that he's on, man, he's 1-5 now. I don't see how you can go from being 13-0 regular season to being 1-5 the next year, man. That's just crazy.
Incredible. It's wild, dude. And that's another thing, like we were talking about. What makes the difference between a guy going 14-0 and then 1-5? It's like, dude, this whole year's been wild, man. It's just been a wild year.
Florida State last year had a lot of close wins, and this year they're having a lot of close losses. Although SMU just beat them like a drum.
Right.
I can't believe they just let SMU they weren't even close.
That was the one that blew my mind the most. It's wild.
Fred Bagley said that the dumbest thing that Lincoln Riley ever said was you can't recruit to Oklahoma. Well, I think it was him and that idiot Colin Coward. Colin Coward said that shit, and I'm like, you do realize that Oklahoma's been recruiting outside the state of Oklahoma for almost 100 years, right?
Right.
Y'all, man. Y'all just throw shit against the wall and hope people don't investigate what you just said, and you think everybody thinks you're dumb. But social media has made everybody a lot smarter. The common Joes have pulled the curtain back.
Yeah, and I mean, dude, I get it that it's hard. Like, I haven't even seen, with the exception of Bob Stoops doing it once or twice, it is real hard. Like, I guess you could say Oklahoma doesn't consistently recruit like a number one or like we don't recruit on the level of Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State. Like they've been getting like all three of them teams. They either got like the number one, the number two, or the number three. It's hard to consistently recruit in the top 5. Bob Stoops even winning a natty, he'd beat Texas 5 years in a row. And he finally got like maybe a number 3 recruiting class one time. Like it is, I think Barry Switzer was able to get like a number 1 or number 2 or number 3 once or twice. Like he could recruit, but it is kind of like, I guess you could say it's hard to be a top 5 recruiting class or a top 3 recruiting class at Oklahoma, but you can get top 10 classes almost every year at OU. Just hitting the, like we recruit a lot of the North Texas area and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then we recruit whatever, we recruit the Missouri and Kansas and Arkansas area too. And then there's usually on average just a few good players in Oklahoma. Like every now and then you'll get a real good class, like the year when we had Jermaine Gresham, Sam Bradford, and Gerald McCoy, and I want to say that Lindy Holmes may have been a guy that come in that same class. But there was one year, and it may have been like 2 years apart. Oh, Ryan Broyles may have been like the year before that. But there was a team we had where there was like half a dozen good players that were all from the state of Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think if you can get in the top 10, it's pretty much interchangeable. At that point, it comes down to coaching. Once you can start getting top 10 classes, you got to have the coaches that can develop the talent at that point too, because there's lots of teams like Texas for a number of years that's able to get top 5 classes and just not able to develop the shit. But
no, you're right on that.
Tatted Sailor has his badge. He's deputized. By the way, if y'all want to get deputized and get your badge, like some of these guys in here, it's $2.99 a month, 75 cents a week. It's just a half a bottle of water for the outlaw. Hell, I even give Johnny John some of it. It's $2.99 a month. You just hit that join button next to the subscribe button. You'll get your badge. You'll be deputized. You get a random Four Horsemen shout out, as well as possibly the comment of the day, which I done earlier in the show. He says, Okay, so just read an article that said when Army joined the AAC this year, it was agreed that the yearly Army-Navy game is going to be a non-conference game. It will have no playoff implications.
Okay, well, there we go.
So that answered our question on that.
Yeah.
Sigma wanted you to know that we have the #1 recruiting class this year, Roll Damn Tide.
Dude, yeah. I mean, they're still killing it in recruiting, man.
We'll continue to get these recruits and stuff until stuff like losing to Vanderbilt happens, because unfortunately, just like with Oklahoma, they're going to find out too that all these great recruiting classes that Brent Venables been having, because he had a fresh new message and the guy's really got an infectious personality that everybody loves, but that shit will wear off if you start losing. So in Oklahoma, this South Carolina game didn't seem important at the beginning of the year, but it's a very important game. Y'all have got to win this game, because if you lose this game after losing Texas, it could be the difference from going 7-5 to 5-7, maybe. Yep.
No, it is. I agree. But yeah, with Alabama, they're still recruiting #1 recruiting class, even with Kalen DeBoer, because the whole thing was, well, with Kalen DeBoer, they're not going to be able to get that #1 and #2 recruiting class every single year. And here it is. They've still got it locked in, and I think they're going to keep it, because even if they win a few of these games close, I know they had to win the one close last week and a close one against Georgia, but the key word is winning. They're still at least winning. And Kalen DeBoer, like the difference between Kalen DeBoer and like Brent Venables is Kalen DeBoer is proven as a head coach who can get a team to the playoffs and win a playoff game. Like he's also got a proven record against other ranked teams. Like I have a feeling Alabama's going to come out and play really good against Tennessee. Like it seems like Kalen DeBoer, when it's a big game, his team is ready to go.
Yeah, well, he done that at Washington. He struggled with Arizona State when Arizona State was a 1-5 team or 1-6. Beat them 15-7.
Yep, he did.
And then ended up going to playoffs and beating Texas. So
yeah, and I remember watching them play Oregon the second time, and they were underdogs. I even like
they were double. It was a double digit dog.
and I thought Oregon was going to smoke them that second game. I said, dude, Oregon had a bad game against them. Washington got lucky. They're going to end up getting smoked on this second game, man. We've seen this happen. It's really hard to beat a good team twice. And Washington come out there and just, pushed them around. I was like, dude, they're just flat out better. They're better coached. They're tougher. Like this is a coach that knows how to prepare a football team for a big game. And even in that national championship game, dude, they were definitely outmanned and outmatched in that one. But I was really, 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 really impressed with Kalen DeBoer's Washington team last year. And I think that I can't wait to see what they do against Tennessee. I think they're going to show up and show out in that game. I think they'll be – I hope he plays just like the Washington team did against Oregon and USC.
After the Tennessee game, we got a game against Missouri. I'm worried about that because you see what happened after we beat Georgia. If we go out there and beat Tennessee, we may have that letdown again, slip up and lose to Missouri or some shit.
God, I know. I get why you're concerned about it for sure. But
no, they look like shit against A&M, but just saying, I mean, if we can make it through Tennessee and Missouri without losing and get to the off week, we might be okay going down to Baton Rouge.
I know I would
definitely be surprised if Arkansas beats LSU this week.
Yeah. Saying. Oh, I know. Arkansas's tough, man. I'm glad we don't have to play Arkansas. That's another team that don't have, like, they're not going to be a top 5 team, but they're still capable of beating anybody. Like, Arkansas is a team that, man, y'all don't have to play them, do y'all?
No, we don't.
I wonder if Texas has to play them. I would be glad to not have to play Arkansas, dude, because they're just one of them teams that's just a pain in the ass, man.
Well, then they got a big win over Tennessee, too, man. That could be one of the season changers for them. And, you know, they got Petrino as offensive coordinator now, and he had Arkansas in the top 5 when he was the head coach there. So
right. Oh, I remember. I remember whenever they were good when they had him. I kind of felt like he may take over as their head coach again if the offense is good, but maybe the defense ain't as good. And maybe they I could see it being a thing where he's hired to maybe eventually become the head coach, and if not, he may be the head coach at Oklahoma next year.
As long as he can keep that jack in the box inside of his pants, he'll be all right. And stop riding around on the motorcycles with a hot understudies or whoever it was his wife caught him with, and she run him off the road.
All right.
You remember him coming in that press conference all skin up, motorcycle?
Yeah. Yeah, before you had Tiger Woods, or was he? Did he do it before Tiger Woods did his whole little episode with all that? I can't remember which one of them come first, but it may have been around the same time. But yeah, people always think of Tiger Woods, but he was that guy that was in that situation beforehand.
Him and Tiger were in a close place. You know, a woman can undo you, man.
Yeah, I'm telling you, definitely.
Rodney Dawkins says Bama fans need to ease up on DeBoer. These same people bitching would probably lose their minds if someone analyzed their own performance in their job the same way they judge DeBoer.
I mean, yeah, that's how it goes. I mean, there's such a high standard at Alabama, dude. It's one of them places where, like, they've won 6 natties the past, wasn't it between 2009 was the first one, and then 2020 or 21 was the last one? Or was it 2020? So you had a short period of time where they had 6 national championships. It was 2009 to 2020, I think, right?
Yeah.
Where they won 6. That's basically winning a natty every other year. I mean,
it was one time 6 out of 12. So it was like every
That's
other
what
year.
It was. Every other year. I mean, that's just – so that's like something you do on the video game, man, not real life. And win 6.
Especially with the parity that you have now.
Right. So, yeah, they go from that to, you know, that's the standard that is set at Alabama. And, you know, think about it, dude. If you're a 20-year-old Alabama fan or even like a 25-year-old Alabama fan, you know, you were a little kid last time Alabama wasn't this dominant team that we've seen, you know, the last 15 years. Like, I have a brother-in-law that's a huge Alabama fan, and he's in his mid-20s. And he's, like, all he knows is Alabama. He doesn't some people hope for the best. Alabama fans expect it. And when you go out and you have a close game against South Carolina and then lose the one to Vanderbilt, like, yeah, I see why they're irritated, but it's like if you get rid of him, I mean, you already went out and got one of the best options. I think they got the best option they could possibly get, really. I mean, I don't really think, I mean, I guess who else would have been the best? Steve Sarkisian? Well, Kalen DeBoer beat Steve Sarkisian. Dan Lanning? Well, Kalen DeBoer beat Dan Lanning.
Yep.
Lane Kiffin? I don't think I wouldn't take Lane Kiffin over Kalen DeBoer. Like, so, I mean, I feel like they got the best option they could get.
They could have got that would maybe been better is a guy that you weren't going to be able to get, and that's Kirby Smart.
Right, right.
And that's only because of his defensive prowess. Offensively speaking, you got the best option.
Yeah.
I think Kalen DeBoer is probably a little bit better than Lane Kiffin as far as offense goes. Maybe not by much, but a little bit. I think he's better.
Yeah.
Tadek Sailor says Texas does play Arkansas on November 16th. I wonder if that's in Fayetteville or that's in Austin.
I know. I wonder where it's at. I feel like
Arkansas beat them last time they played them.
They did. They beat them in Arkansas, I think. And I think they played a 1-1 with them, but
I think it was a neutral site game in Dallas. Maybe they beat them.
Yeah. Yeah, and they beat them pretty good too, if I remember right. Like I thought they beat them by 2 or 3 scores.
They beat them by a couple of scores. You're right.
Yeah, they.
One road says, "Oh God, imagine if Missouri beats Oklahoma this year. Just think how unbearable those mid-poo fans would be on social media."
Oh God, yeah, and I mean, we got to go to Missouri and play them. Oh, dude, I don't know. I don't know how to fix it at OU, man. And this is coming from a huge OU fan. Like, dude, I love OU, man. They're literally tattooed on my arm. Like it pains me to admit that I don't see a guaranteed win on the schedule the rest of the year except for Maine.
Right.
Like in every category, dude. Like I haven't seen an offense like this. Even in the off years that we had, like even in 2022 when we went out there and got smoked by Texas, we at least had the hope of, well, Dylan Gabriel's got a concussion. He'll be back next week, and we'll at least be able to be competitive when he comes back. We at least had like something to look forward to. And then, 2014 team, we had a really bad offense that year. That was the year Josh Heupel got fired. Well, we at least had, Samaje Perine we could hand the ball off to. We had to run an offense real similar to what Michigan ran against USC. We had no passing game whatsoever. Star wide receiver was hurt. Quarterback was hurt. And we had to just hand it off to an NFL running back, Samaje Perine. I think Mixon was hurt. But I would take that offense over this offense. Like, then in 2009, we had a bad offense. We lost Sam Bradford, lost Jermaine Gresham. One of them got hurt in the preseason, fall practices. And then Bradford got hurt in the first half against BYU. We lost by 1 point. Even that team.
Is South Carolina, is that in Norman?
Yes, it is in Norman at least. And if they get Burks back, like that Deion Burks, you at least have like something. You can throw him. I wouldn't care. Like if he comes back, I would throw him the ball 15 times, dude. I'd throw him a screen 5 times. I'd throw him. I would do some end around reverses. I would do everything I can to get that guy the ball because he's literally going to be almost all you have on offense. And then they did start getting the running game going a little bit against Texas. They kind of went away from it, which I think they had to kind of go away with it. Once you're down 28 to frickin' 3, you kind of got to go away from the running game. But if they could, they did show something with the running game. So, but I'm trying to just pick out the positives with this offense, and the only positives I can think of is they got to get the Deion Burks guy and Julio Farouk. If they can get Farouk and Burks back, maybe, just maybe, they could run some type of offense where, like, you put I remember, I want to say it was Stanford. They used to run this offense where they would have, like, 2 or 3 tight ends, but they wasn't tight ends. They'd have a tackle out there wearing like an 88 jersey or, like another left tackle wearing an 87 jersey. And they would be able to just smoke your ass, dude. You would have to have defensive ends playing linebacker to defend this. And if we could have an offense where we come out there and have like 2 tight ends that are actually tackles, helping block, and then have Farouk and Burks out there at wide receiver, maybe you could run something similar to what Stanford was doing. And that was back when they had Jim Harbaugh. I remember they were running that stuff. We played against them in a bowl game. and we had to totally reconstruct our defense to play against them because of that package that they had with those tackles playing tight end.
Don't look now, but not to change the subject, but Larry Chewicki was in here a while ago and made me think of something. Nebraska's now what, 5-1?
I think so. Yeah, I think they got one loss.
Maybe one of your old rivals might be sneaking back up again. And they beat Rutgers, who was undefeated. And then Rutgers was banged up against Wisconsin, got blew out, so it's a little misleading. But they play Indiana this week, and Indiana's undefeated. So they could pin a loss on both Rutgers and Indiana for their first loss and be 6-1. Nebraska plays Ohio State the week after that. So, I mean, could we see maybe a reemergence of Nebraska coming?
Yeah, and then on the backside of us going down, they're coming back up. Maybe. Man, I thought Rutgers was the one they lost to.
They beat Rutgers.
No. You're right. It was Indiana was the one they lost to. It was a team. Illinois. Okay, that's who it was. Illinois. I knew it was one of those teams that ain't normally good. That randomly is just good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they did. So Rutgers was the one they beat. Illinois was the one they lost to. But yeah, I'm. That's another one of those teams that when we were talking about, there's just certain teams from year to year that, especially if you're having a down year with your team, and I know as an Alabama fan, you guys don't know what that is the last 15 years, but it's like for me, I've had a couple down years with Oklahoma, so I have to enjoy the game, I have to have other teams that I kind of root for here and there. And Nebraska is one of those teams. Like I root for them. I'd still also root for Oregon because I like Dylan Gabriel. But and then of course I root for Alabama because of the Outlaw Posse, and hey, they got. I really like their colors of their jerseys and their uniforms.
Nothing like that crimson, baby.
Right. I pretend it's my team out there. They look a lot like Oklahoma, so it makes it even easier to root for them.
That's right. I'm going to do a real quick four horseman pick. I'm going to get your thoughts on these 4 games, and I'm going to get out of here. But
okay.
Georgia versus Texas. What do you got?
Oh, man. I kind of feel like Texas. Is it at Texas, too?
It is at Austin, yeah.
Is it? Man, I'm going to go with Texas on this one, but I hope I'm wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hoping that Texas is probably, maybe they're coming off a big rivalry win and Georgia catches them at the right time. But from what I've seen from Georgia, them slow starts is what's going to end up hurting them.
Right.
If they let Texas get up 28-0, I don't think they're going to come back on like they did us. Just my opinion.
Right.
But
I
think Georgia can win that game. So I'm going to take Georgia. But
I hope you're right.
Alabama versus Tennessee.
I'm going to go with Alabama on this one.
Yeah, I'm back and forth on it, man. It's a scary situation because of what happened 2 years ago. I'm a little traumatized still.
Right.
I was really surprised that we was favored to win, man. I'm just hoping that everything you're telling me and what you're saying about Nico not being ready quite yet. Josh Heupel's still acting a little gun shy. I hope he continues doing that, and maybe Alabama can pull this out. Maybe, like you said, maybe Tennessee rolls over when we win by a couple of scores. Oklahoma versus South Carolina.
Oh, man. It's hard to pick OU to win a game with how bad that offense is, dude. But since I'm an OU fan, got to do it. I'm going to say that OU wins the game 6-3.
This game's important. More important than I thought it would be. It's absolutely important because if you lose them after Texas, man, it could set off it might be a game changer for the rest of the season. It can make the difference in going to a bowl game and not going to a bowl game.
I think it is going to make the difference between us going to a bowl game and not. I really do. And I think it's also going to make the difference between this team crumbling and falling apart, or maybe, getting it back together and maybe they'll surprise, a couple other teams down the road. maybe grab another win or two down the road and get to 7 wins. But I think it's going to be the difference between them winning 5 games and totally falling apart and only winning against Maine, or win, get a little bit of momentum, maybe start believing in yourself again, and maybe you win 7 or 8 like we initially thought,
Yeah, I think if they beat South Carolina, like you said, I think it'll be a little bit of a confidence builder, and then you might be able to beat someone like Missouri, who don't look too good this year, and end up going 8-4. And if I was Oklahoma people, I would be satisfied with 8-4.
I will.
It's not. There's a lot of them that's not going to be satisfied, but 8-4 would be good after what you've seen against Texas.
Right.
The last one I'm going to throw at you is LSU versus Arkansas in Fayetteville.
God, I feel like Arkansas is going to probably win that game, man. I mean,
is Brian Kelly not one of the luckiest bastards you've ever seen, man? It's like he always wins these games he's not supposed to, and just enough to keep his job, man.
Right. And maybe LSU might end up pulling off. And it's not like LSU has looked like their quarterback. I was thinking, man, they lost a Heisman Trophy quarterback, and the Usmeyer guys played pretty well. I mean, they I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it with them, man. Like they and another thing is they're just not real consistent. Like if they come, neither is Arkansas either, though. That's kind of a tough one to pick, man. I guess
they should have lost that game against South Carolina. The officials screwed South Carolina on that LSU game.
Yeah, they could have easily lost that one too. Yeah, man, I would almost go with Arkansas on that, man.
Yeah,
I'm at least the favorite.
I'm really wanting. I really want Arkansas to win that game, man, because I cannot stand Brian Kelly, man. I like LSU and I like their people. A lot of people don't like LSU fans, but I've never had a problem with them. Them guys know how to party down there. But I can't get on board with the coaches they've been hiring, man. You got Ed Orgeron over there. It's crazy ass, man, doing all sorts of nefarious shit. And then you got Brian Kelly, who comes down there and fakes an accent and got some kid killed in a tower up at Notre Dame. I mean, he's just a shady bastard, man. I just can't get on board with those kind of guys.
Yeah, who's the favorite in that game? Is LSU slightly favored, or I figured Arkansas, or it's got to be a pretty close spread.
LSU and Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I'll see if I can find it. Here's the betting. LSU is a 3-point favorite.
Wow, so LSU is the favorite. Huh. I mean, I guess I figured it was a 3-point spread regardless of what way it goes. Man, I would take freaking Arkansas in those 3 points. But this guy says OU wins 3-2. Yeah, the offense will give up 2 points. I can see that. And then the defense gets a turnover and we kick a field goal and the defense gets us the 3 points basically.
That Kennard guy for South Carolina, that dude's no joke, man. He got to Jalen Milroe numerous times. Jalen Milroe is a pretty athletic guy. So
right.
Y'all better be careful with him, man. He might put a hurt on your quarterback.
Yeah, we may see Jackson Arnold regardless. I mean, because I've been saying I don't know how they're going to keep that kid from getting hurt. Like as poor as that offensive line is, they're just not, like Jim Traber said, man. They're just not any good. And there was a legendary coach that said, "Young bad players turn into old bad players." and if you think about it, and I know some guys get better as they get older, no doubt about it. But a lot of times, like guys you can at least see some signs of them being good even when they're young. Like the Williams kid from Alabama, the wide receiver, like Caleb Williams at OU, you could tell he had some talent right away. But it's like a lot of these guys, you can tell they at least they show some signs of being good even when they're young. And with that old line, they're just not any good. And I don't think they're going to be any good next year. Jim Traber said, I'll tell you something. If Oklahoma goes out next year and they have even one guy, if they have more than one guy on that offense starting that's on that offensive line this year, He said they're going to be in trouble again next year, and they're going to lose 6-7 games next year. And I agree with that, dude. They got to completely get a whole new line.
I think they need to go in the transfer portal and get some guys that are maybe experienced and maybe a little disgruntled with their current situation. I hate propping up the transfer portal because I hate it, but I think that might be y'all's ticket.
Right. It's turned into that, and I know I've always been the kind of guy that's like, if you would have asked me 5 years ago or even 3 or 4 years ago, I would have told you, no, dude, you can't rely on the transfer portal because most of the time there's a reason why them guys are in there. They couldn't hack it at the school that they were at before.
Right.
That's how I've always felt my whole life. But nowadays, it's not like that no more. There's like guys that are starters. There's guys that are Heisman, like Dylan Gabriel, Heisman finalists.
That's right.
So it used to be a thing where, it was Caleb Williams. I mean, it used to be a deal where Jordan Addison.
Caleb Downs at Alabama, the defensive
back.
Right,
Caleb Downs.
Mm-hmm.
But Jordan Addison, the Travis Dye, I mean, there's been so many, like it used to just be kind of slim pickings in the portal, but the like how it is nowadays, it's not like that no more. You can actually go get some guys that are just in the portal because their team, they may be All-Americans, they might be potential Heisman guys, they may be guys that they could have been a third-round pick, but they know they can make a little bit more money playing one more year of college, like Dylan Gabriel, or like the Dominic Williams guy, that defensive tackle we got. He could have went to the NFL, and they said he probably would have been a late-round pick. I don't know, and I don't really know enough about him to know if he was going to be a 4th or a 7th or a 6th, but they said he was going to at least be a draft pick. But Oklahoma paid him $1 million. Or close to it. I've heard $750,000. I've heard $800,000, but they paid him close to $1 million. And he knew that
the transfer portal came before NIL, so that's why at first it was like these are just players that couldn't start, they weren't good enough. But when they started having NIL, then these players were actually good because they were getting in the portal because they wanted more money or they wanted more attention.
Yep. That's right.
That's why the portal is better now.
Yeah, it's starting to change because I have always felt like, we don't want to make a living off the portal. You can't be guaranteed to fix anything out of the portal, but because those guys are in there for a reason. But now there's guys that are in there for a million reasons, like millions of dollars.
Fred Bagley says it's never going to be the way it used to be, guys, and that's probably true. Unless they make these guys start signing contracts and pay for play, they're just going to have to do something, man. They're going to have to start making these guys sign contracts.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to see it ruin this great sport that we all love, man. And it's my favorite sport, dude. I love college football. Like, it is my number 1A, my number 1B. It's like college football is my main thing. I love college football, and I don't want to see it get ruined. But
the only way I think they're going to be able to reel them in is to start having contracts and what is it called? Collective bargaining or some shit.
Yeah.
You have a team like Vanderbilt who loses a player, or like Georgia Tech lost that running back to Alabama, and they don't get nothing in return for it. That shit don't even happen in the NFL. In the NFL, if you go and take somebody's player, you have to give them something for it. You can't just come and take somebody's shit and then them not get nothing. That shit's not right. And I'm a blue blood fan saying that because, we can go and do that to a lot of teams, but it's not right. Man. It's not fair to the Wake Forest and the Vanderbilts of the world.
Yeah, no, that's true, man. Yeah, they got to have contracts, man, to where they've got to do something. It can't just be every man for himself because like you said, even in the NFL, like, dude, Dallas Cowboys can't just go steal Patrick Mahomes without giving them something in return. They got to wait till his contract's up and he's a free agent, or they're going to have to unload a bunch of draft picks, or like you can't just go, like, literally college players have way more freedom than NFL players.
Now, that's ass backwards, man. It's like saying the employees got more power than the upper management.
Right.
That don't make no sense. Like I said, Patrick Mahomes can't just decide one day, you know what, I don't like playing in Kansas City. The weather's shitty up here. I'm going to go down here and play in Miami. I'm going to go to Miami and play now.
Exactly, dude. That is no shit at all.
All right, brother, I think I'm fixing to get up out of here. We've been almost on for 2 hours. It's been a pretty good show so far. I liked it.
Yeah, heck yeah.
But you got any maybe some ideas for a future show for me?
Man, I hope we can come on here this like Saturday night and talk about how OU pulled off a win and against South Carolina, and Alabama got the win against Tennessee. And because this Saturday I'm going to be enjoying a few beers, and I hope I'm happy when I'm drinking those beers.
I don't know what you might lose your noodle on here.
Right. Yeah, no, I'll come on whether we win or lose. If you have a show and you have visitors, guests on, man, I'll definitely come on for sure. Even if we lose, I'll still come on and talk about OU and the other games, because I'm going to still watch the other games. Like after we lost, I was like, oh, dude, heck yeah, we got Ohio State and Oregon coming on. And everybody else was like, dude, I can't watch. Like I'm so depressed, I don't want to watch college football. And I'm like, I get it. Take a week off, man. But I'm watching this damn game, man. I'm watching this Oregon and Ohio State. Yeah, it's ass backwards, Fred says. It is. All right, man.
I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, bro.
And that was Johnny Johns from Next Halen, the best damn Van Halen cover band of all time. Y'all go check them out in Shawnee, Oklahoma. I think it's coming up. You can go check the website out for the exact date and go check them out if you like Van Halen, if you like 80s rock. They're a pretty good band to go see. He said one day he's going to have me on his tour bus. We're going to do a show from the tour bus. Hey, wouldn't that be some shit? Maybe even get some Outlaw Posse members to join us in the fray. What do you think? John Ritchie says, Johnny Johns, don't turn into Jonathan while you're drunk on the shrooms now. Turd Ferguson with a fist bump. The best screen name in YouTube history is Turd Ferguson. Give him a fist bump before we get up out of here. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. This live stream will go to podcast after the show. So if you don't mind, please share it out to your friends. Get them to subscribe, man. We're almost to 5,000 subscribers. It's like we get close to that big milestone, and it's just like now it's creeping. So I need y'all to try to get your friends to subscribe. I don't care what fan base they are. It could be Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, even the USC Skittle Shitters, maybe even the Nagasaki Egg Rolls of the Japanese American Football League. Get them in here. Let's get this party crunk. With that, I'm out of here. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.